Hello, 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 hello. It's me. Hold on one second. I'm gonna switch this over. Okay. Hey guys, it's me, Jamali Senpai here. Right now we're just gonna start off today's stream. What is today? March 15th. We're gonna start off March 15th. By just going over a couple things, just reading some things in regards to Ukraine. It's sort of a little bit of a juxtaposition. We're going to do some more research, some live research here as well. We're just going to see how this war is being framed so far in the modern age. This is very interesting, and so far it's like I feel like one of the more in-depthly watched and filmed war of like modern like times, of the 2020s, I guess. um, I don't even think like the like early 2000s, like the wars in Afghanistan and stuff were that televised, or at least that, yeah, let that televised like so live. Like there's tons of footage that came back from it, like from journalists and stuff that came back from their time over there. But I don't think there's as much live. I was a kid then, so maybe that's why. Maybe that's why there's not a lot of memory of like live war footage. Invading Iraq and other things like that. But I found this article particularly interesting, and I wanted to do some reading on it. I wanted to read it, and then I wanted to also see how, in juxtaposition, this is what I said earlier, to how they treat African students in the same country. So, well, it's interesting. It's interesting, and the framing sounds really bad faith. I get it. Like it sounds like I'm just saying, "Oh my God, are you just using this article as a way to, show how Ukrainians care more about their pets than the lives of other humans that are African?" No, let's read the article. Shut up. Okay. Ukraine's pets are symbols of humanity in an inhumane war. In the face of Russia's indiscriminate attack, Ukrainians care for their animals in an act of defiance. That's good. That's good. At least the animals are good, though. Human beings quickly lose their humanity, but cats never stop being cats, John Gray observed in his book Feline Philosophy. The first half of that notion is being born out of Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine, where Russia's list of alleged war crimes continue to rise. Yet the war is also revealing great acts of humanity, not least in the efforts Ukrainian pet owners are taking to protect their non human companions. Over the past few weeks, many fleeing refugees have used an extra suitcase to carry their cat or dog to safety. The situation is very different from that in Afghanistan in late August, when the former Royal Marine Penn Farthing first flew around 200 animals from a shelter out of the war zone, before successfully campaigning to get the shelter's staff to safety. Ukraine's fleeing pet owners are not prioritizing their animals over human life. They are simply demonstrating compassion towards their animals as they save themselves. Okay, wait. The situation is very different. From 200 animals. Okay, yeah. But before, yeah, okay. Some of these small feats of altruism are becoming defining images of the conflict. Photos of countless refugees, cats, and dogs being clung to the newly displaced are now in circulation. In one particularly striking instance, a family took turns to carry their luggage, elderly German shepherd that the last 17 kilometers to the Polish border. Awaiting at the border crossing and beyond inside neighboring nation cities are teams of volunteer vets and charity staff. Our veterinarians provide free first aid care as well as deworming, microchipping, and vaccination against rabies. The NGO Four Paws advertised in a tweet. Some Ukrainians, however, are refusing to leave the country without their animals. Others hand them over to shelters at borders for fear of not being able to find refuge together outside of Ukraine. That's sad. That sucks. Imagine having to give your pet up. It's a tearjerker. The UK government announced on Sunday, March 13th, the dates are backwards, but okay, that it would cover the cost, Europeans, that it would cover the cost of quarantining refugees' pets following calls by animal charities and campaigner Dominic Dyer for proper assistance to be offered to those fleeing with animals. Wow. But they say more still could be done to help. Wow. Okay. This is a very good article in the sense that it both puts the stakes for what's, really important here to these individual Ukrainian people with pets and what they're going through right now. People with pets, what they're going through. And, it's more so that these people are like people are having to give away pets and stuff. That makes sense. I thought it would be more of an article just talking about how much priority like people are giving to their pets and stuff, and then like moving through Ukraine, like they're trying to leave with their pets. But I could see how it would be more beneficial to leave your pets in certain places. But they are taking them out of like direct war zones. They're not just abandoning them, which is really cool, I guess. Um, I mean, not I guess, I know. That's pretty good. We are grateful the Department of Food and Rural Affairs have been realized that only compassionate choice in these dark times, said the Vice President of PETA. I'm sorry, I just sped read that entire sentence. Sorry. We are grateful that the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs have realized that keeping families together is the only compassionate choice in these dark times, said the Vice President of PETA. Mimi Becala, I don't know how to pronounce it. In a statement, however, we hope the quarantine periods for animals can be shortened and that the quarantined animals will be allowed regular visits from their human family members. Inside besieged Ukraine, meanwhile, some remaining animals are being driven to safety by outside teams. A collaboration between PETA, Viva Poland, and White Paw rescued more than 420 dogs and cats last week. While in heavily shelled Kharkiv, for example, operators at the city's Animal Rescue Center have stayed behind in an attempt to respond to the flock of Facebook inquiries about left behind or lost pets. They have even made a mascot out of one wounded dog, naming him Bayaktar, after the Turkish made drone used by the Ukrainian military. Not nor are pets the only animals receiving emergency care inside a war torn. In Kiev Zoo, as nearby bombs sent tremors to the ground, as the name Byakatar was also given to a tiny newborn lemur. While many people might have mixed feelings about the continuing existence of zoos or naming creatures after military weapons for that matter, wartime support has been a way to show solidarity with the nation as a whole, with online tickets to Mykolaiv Zoo in southern Ukraine already sold out for the coming week. Furthermore, beyond the questions of freedom versus repression that always swirl in retaliation to the humanity's treatment of animals, efforts to safeguard Ukrainian pets are a reminder of the need to protect the connection between people and animals around the world. In Lebanon, animal rescue services struggling under the weight of abandoned pets are posting on Facebook about Ukrainian efforts, as the experience of Syrians stuck in Jordan camps show keeping caged birds has been a way for many refugees to create a home within the sterile shelters. For people forced to flee, a pet can be a vital source of comfort, wrote the Norwegian Refugee Council in 2018, noting their ability to reduce stress and alleviate loneliness even in the hardest of times. Helping Ukrainians to keep their pets with them will likely reap benefits in unmeasurable ways going forward, not least in protecting their sense of humanity and our own with it. That was a beautiful article. What is this? The New Statesman. Okay. Ukraine. Oh yeah, what's going on with that? The hypocrisy of support for Ukraine must not harden Black America's heart. Okay. On record, Africans stuck in Ukraine, that's not an American problem. That's an African problem. Those are African citizens. Um, Black America also is American. I don't really. That's a weird sort of way to sort of divide people. It's kind of cringe. Can I just read this article? You don't know what you don't know. I'm 42 years old and I've been with my wife since I was 15. I've grown up with her. I've seen her through every stage and challenge of life that a girl and a woman can face. I have four daughters in elementary school, middle school, and college. I've been a girl dad since I was almost. I've been a girl dad since I was almost a kid myself. But still, I understand. I don't know what it's like to be a woman. Wait. What is this article? Is this? Similarly, if you okay, gauntlet. I just a big fan of. Similarly, if you've never faced the exhausting gauntlet of racism, bigotry, and white supremacy in the world, it's hard for a book or a black friend to close the knowledge gap. And while I don't think my next 500 words are going to do the trick, I'm hoping you can. Okay. The war and refugee crisis in Ukraine is absolutely terrible. Millions of women, children, and elderly adults have been forced to flee the country with nothing but the clothes on their backs. It's the fastest, largest forced migration of Europeans since World War II, and the crisis is truly only getting started. The sheer scale of this human rights catastrophe makes me shudder. Millions of people have lost everything. Many have lost their homes and their most prized possessions. Many more have lost children, parents, spouses, friends, and lovers. For most of the audience of millions of followers, listeners, and readers, predominantly black, the horrors of this despicable war of choice from Russia were first met with sympathy and compassion. What? For most of my audience, Newsweek, for most of my audience of million of followers, listeners, and predominantly black, the horrors of this war of choice in Russia was met with sympathy and compassion. I saw it in real time across my timeline. I saw people say that it reminded them of the pain and loss of the Tulsa Race Massacre of 1921, where hundreds of African Americans were slaughtered and tens of thousands more had their homes and businesses destroyed, all at the hands of violent whites. Okay. See, that's the thing. Black people will always have an abundance of painful references points to help them connect and relate to any trauma being experienced around the world. And at first, that's all I saw being relayed across the eclectic spectrum of Black America. Then we Oh, I understand. I thought, see, okay, am I weird? The horrors? I see. They weren't sad. They didn't have sympathy and compassion for Russia. They had sympathy and compassion for Ukraine. I feel like that was read weird. Maybe that was me. I don't know. Okay. Then we simultaneously learned something together that virtually none of us knew before. Ukraine had a small but thriving population of at least 20,000 black academics, medical students, professionals, and refugees. And they too were trying to flee the Russian invasion. Except instead of being met with open arms and inviting borders, they were manhandled, mistreated, deprioritized, forced off buses, and routinely told to get to the back of the line. And suddenly, African Americans found an injustice that was eerily and painfully familiar. And in an instant, I saw something happen that truly broke my heart. While I'm not sure anybody in the world has a deeper reservoir of compassion than African Americans, it was almost like a switch had been flipped. We will show up for everybody, but if we learn that you're a flagrant and overt racist, we do not have the time and emotional capacity to fight through our own oppression and care about people that seemingly hate us. True. And as almost the entire world moved heaven and earth to support Ukraine with warmth, urgency, missiles, and money, a much deeper rift was revealed that goes far beyond Black America. Palestinians who have struggled for decades under the Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International, two of the most respected human rights organizations in the world, call a brutal system of modern apartheid from Israel, could not believe their eyes as the mainstream news giddily showed celebratory videos of mothers and grandmothers making Molotov cocktails. Syrians, too, had seen their homes and businesses destroyed under the brutal bombardment by Russia, forcing millions of people to flee for safety, but they didn't get even a tiny friction of the money and missiles that Ukraine is seeing, while the refugees were regularly treated like a nuisance, if not a plague. They said it not, but if not a plague. The painful hypocrisy makes it hard for many good people to have the compassion that this crisis truly deserves. And I get it, I truly do, but somehow we must find a way to call out the blatant double standard without completely hardening our hearts to the effects of war. That's easier said than done. But 3 pressing thoughts have motivated me to stay deeply engaged in spite of disturbing images and videos I saw of the overt racism and bigotry Africans, refugees faced while trying to escape. Syria, that's true. It isn't true. What's not true about Syria? I say fuck all, fuck everybody. Well, that's one way to live. That's one way to do it. I think that, you don't want to do that because then everyone will die. Everyone fuck everybody. No, that sucks. I think what's better is to have a level of compassion for everyone. And if we're not going to have a level of compassion for everyone, then there's the base level of compassion that we can have for anyone. and it's lowered every time we're not compassionate to a particular group. Every time we've allowed people to be mistreated, but whether it be for lack of control over the situation, for lack of power, for geopolitical issues, we allow people to be mistreated and allow it to happen. We get further and further from a truly equal and ubiquitous, like, global civilization that is already starting to form. And it's starting to form, but under the worst conditions of people who are in charge for the most part, and a small percentage of people in charge. I still live in this shit country. I'm sorry that you live in a shit country, friend. I wish that there was more that I could do to alleviate you of said pain. Obviously, best case scenario would be to, make it so your country isn't a shit country. But yeah, I get it. That sucks. Yeah, and if I can leave, I will without thinking twice. Yeah, that's rough. It's hard to be in a country that isn't America and be like, yeah, this country's shit, but like I would not leave this country. I There are just certain rights that I feel that are so un like like just alienated from other cultures and societies. Um, just thinking about Britain, right? Like getting fined or getting certain things censored because a group of people decide that that may be something that isn't allowed. I'm particularly talking about their porn industry or whatever, but like just certain things just completely uh, just censored in things like in Russia where like you could go to jail for 15 years, right? But like those Russia is more of an extreme, especially now during war where they're definitely trying to cover up a lot uh, of the things going on. But the thing about the like other places is there's just such a lack of like certain rights. It's weird. Like free speech is not really a thing in other countries. I say Russia wrong, but still Ukraine should give up from the first and don't waste blood. Nah. Nah. It seems really weird when you think about it, but it's not a game, right? And you can argue that the easiest and least like damage to life would come from a surrender, right? Like from an immediate surrender and then just trying to work from the inside. But like that, I don't think that was ever really an option, especially for Zelensky. So we would essentially say condemn Zelensky because he's gonna go to like a political prison or go and get poisoned or commit suicide from two bullets to the back of the head, and then like we condemn Zelensky for that because Russia's definitely trying to. Putin wants to man dead. I'm pretty sure. Uh, we condemn him for peace. One person for thousands of lives, civilians and otherwise, that are taken in this conflict. That doesn't seem fair for anyone. And honestly, if you're gonna be a leader and you're gonna be a leader under siege from a much bigger power, the best thing you can do is hold your ground and try and hold out some semblance of like your own autonomy and your state's own autonomy. You're an elected official, especially of an elected country. I think 50% of all what happened USA have hand with, if it's not more. I mean, let me get this straight. I remember doing research on this. I'm pretty sure Petro Poroshenko was the guy the U.S. installed after the previous person in Ukraine who was super pro-Russian. And then Poroshenko got ousted for some, I think, uh, fraud or some sort of like scandal, and Zelensky ran against him and won. I think like big margins, like 73%. He ran on a populist sort of mentality where he voted, or he say things like like freeing up information and giving people the right for free speech and stuff like that, or not free speech, but like something along the lines of exposing government secrets, draining the swamp, yada yada yada. So he ran on that platform and got elected. So I think he would probably be, that's not American touched at that point. Poroshenko is gone. Ukraine speaks same language and have almost same things. That's why I say they should just surrender from the first, because they don't really have a chance. But yeah, but they're their own independent country, right? Like Syria, if you were being invaded by I don't know, the Ottoman Empire. I'm pretty sure Syria was in the Ottoman Empire. But if you were being invaded by the Ottoman Empire, sure, you guys might speak a similar language. Your cultures might be similarly very much the same, but you wouldn't want that as a people, right? Especially if you're a people has that feels specifically different from that other group. And I can see why Ukrainians would want to hold on to their own like personal identity, their ethnic identity, or I guess their ethnic identity, and hold on to that level of pride and nationalism. The best case would be to allow Russia to just take over. There would be the least amount of bloodshed, but we don't know how that would play out for the people who live there in terms of how they might be abused by Russia, how Russia might use their resources in ways that does not leave anything for them, and that particular region becomes like pretty malnourished and underfunded and shit. Like we don't know. There's a lot of things that can go into that. Or Russia could go and save it and be like a fucking. It could be like this fucking holy fortress that just sits there and as a blockade for more NATO expansionism. I don't know. But it's kind of it's a rough go to just sit and pretend that we have you know a neighboring country that is aggressive towards us, and we don't want to be a part of them because of their system of government, because however it's run and all with the oligarchs of Russia and shit and Putin. Like, if I am president, I will see best Arabic country and give them control. Okay, but okay, maybe that was a bad example because that is something that is cultural. That is something that is very cultural, especially if you see another Muslim country. You are more likely to just stand down and absolve and be absolved into that Muslim country because you recognize them as someone who has a Muslim authority, and a lot of the early stuff for Islam deals around you know conquering other people and showing them that you are pretty much the chosen one's army. Um, and that's how caliphates are born and shit, right? Like, but this isn't that. There's a lot more nuance to it there, right? Like, I could see this being a generation, Zelensky being a part of a generation of Ukrainians that want to be separate, that want to be independent of either of these powers, but they can't because they're fucking geopolitically and geographically just in a very good um, geographically just in a very good position to be abused by one side or the other. What do I think about Israel? Israel's an apartheid state. I don't. I don't fuck with Israel. That's what you're. That's what you're wondering. I think they're doing the just about the same things as the Russians are doing right now. So I think it's both bad. But I want to get back on this article because this is I want to specifically talk about the black American or the black well according to this article about the black American perspective on Ukraine as we see more Africans being mistreated in the country. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is not God, but for me and millions of others, he continues to be a sacred embodiment of the courage and tenacity in the face of overt evil. And the words of Dr. King that are close to a religious credo as anything I have in my life are: injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Having fought his heart out against injustice and racism in the Deep South, Dr. King developed a passion for injustice in New York, then Chicago, then Los Angeles, and soon he found himself caring deeply and passionately about colonialism and freedom fighting in Africa. And in the final months of his life, as his popularity tanked, he refused to support the brutal and senseless war in Vietnam, knowing that all of our destinies are tied together in ways that we don't fully understand. Had Dr. King not been stolen from us, he would have continued to fight against the pain and oppression of people all over the globe. Secondly, it is my faith that has always compelled me to fight for peace and safety and security of refugees, widows, and orphans. If injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, is my life quote. My life verse comes from the Bible. I don't care about this. I have fought against police violence for years because I know it creates widows and orphans, but nothing creates more of them than war. That's why I've decided to push through. Okay, and lastly, while the world gives the necessary support that Ukrainian nationals need, I found my place helping those marginalized Africans who were so badly mistreated. I'm part of a beautiful coalition that has now helped house nearly 250 African students and refugees in the surrounding border countries and helped countless more with flights around the world. Thank God. I was just asking about what was going on with that because we don't hear anything about it anymore. Well, thank the gods. And I had not leaned into that cause. I would not have learned what? I'm all over the place. I'm sorry. I'm part of a beautiful coalition. Yep, that just helped to house 250 African students, blah, 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 the surrounding border countries, and helped countless more with flights around the world. And I had not leaned into that cause. I would not have cause. Yeah, cause. I would not have learned what I have from so many of them, how much they've loved the years they spent in Ukraine, and how kind they've always found the people to be. That's part of why being mistreated at the border hurts so much. Many students and refugees wanted me to know that it was never everyday people who were mistreating them, but only the police, which made their experience resonate even more with me. It has been through my advocacy for Africans in Ukraine that I have come to hope that these students one day have colleges and universities to return to. I they've told me that it's their wish. Just as we would not want the brutality of American police to cause the world to no longer care about our nation as a whole, we must also find it in our hearts to continue caring about this country and its people and its face violence. Okay, so this article is pretty much trying to address the black community and its idea of being mortified by the fact that it was shown very blatantly and overtly that there was racism and how black people, African people had to be, rerouted, or they would be manhandled or mistreated or told to get off or get to the back of the line. And that made it so that black Americans had condemned Ukraine as like, fuck Ukraine at that point. It had switched, like a flip had switched. And she's trying to make the argument that even though this is happening, we must still also be mindful of the fact that this is still violence that begets all of us and all of this and yada, yada, yada. They care about their pets, though. And that's what's really important. Okay? The pets, they get through. No, but I just think that there's a lot to say about that. That's pretty fair to make that claim, or to make that ask, to make that request, to say like, hey, I get it. Black people or African people are being mistreated because of the color of their skin. But we have to condemn this as the act that it is, and that's true. That's pretty fair. That's pretty fair. But I just don't want to say it like, tribalism is something that every part of the world goes through, right? Like being someone who prioritizes people who look like you in a moment of crisis or times of extreme emergency, or people personally, whatever the case is. It happens all over the world in areas that are majority one particular race of people, or not one race, we're all one race, but one color, if you want to boil it down to that, or ethnicity. And I get that is a thing that happens, and no one is saying that this is a unique thing to this particular part of the world or these people, Europeans or anything like that. But it is something that is highlighted a lot more in this time and age, where there seemingly is no real place where Africans or Black Americans or just black people across the Caribbeans and across the world that have been transported over the Atlantic slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade, there is no real place for them to be oppressors at all, which is great because we don't want to oppress people, or at least oppressors to, you know, white majority or like things like that. Obviously, there are ways that Africans can be oppressive to themselves and Black Americans can be oppressive to themselves, but there isn't a real place where there's you know, there's able to be like a Black influence over like, you know, Asian people, white people, and things like that. And when we see things like that in Ukraine happening in a European country, you know, we prescribe it to just more white people being racist against Black people because of color of their skin. And that's what it is. That's what it is. It's that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's unique to Ukraine or unique to that area, but that's what it is. People are fucking racist, and it sucks because it's something that we've lived with for hundreds and hundreds of years, and the exploitation of a certain groups of people make that even more easier to pursue. So that's just how it goes. It sucks. It's sad. It really is sad because we could be living in a world where none of that happens and we just have an honest fucking, all right, guys, just everyone evacuate. It doesn't matter. Whoever gets here first, let's go. Everyone's on board. Sweet. We just go through this. No one looks at color. No one cares about things like that. But in a moment of crisis, when shit hits the fan, that's just what you get. You get blatant, straight up, mask off racism. And of note, the African students did say that, you know, that wasn't from everyday people. That was from, you know, police people, officials, you know. Although there are videos that we see regular everyday people in clothes sort of arguing with African students. So I don't know. It feels bad, man. All right, I'm gonna switch over. We're gonna play some League. This video is going up on my YouTube though. I have been recording this, so this segment is going up on my YouTube. Thank you for participating in it, MVP. I hope you're still out there. But guys, I'll see you, and I'll try and keep regularly doing these little like articles and pieces like this. They'll be a little sloppy at first, but we'll eventually we'll rein them in. But thank you. Hopefully you subscribe, you like the video, and leave a comment if you think there's anything you want to add to the conversation. Bye. Good luck. Have fun.